Okay, so what I have here is an example of a web style guide. That's on the left. On the right side is an example of a website that's been designed using the web style guide on the left. And this is one of our quick launch templates called Jamie's Bakery. That's what I'm going to use as an example here. So, web style guide, what's on it? So, the parts that you're going to see on your web style guide is color palette, a typography example, a section that will have icons and elements. Sometimes there will be patterns here, or little illustrations, different icons, things like that. Then you have a section for button styles, and finally a section that shows image style. So I'm just going to walk through these real quick. So for the colors, I would say when you're reviewing your style guide, this might be the most important part, especially if you don't already have an established brand color palette. If you do, we'll just pull those colors from your current brand guide right into here or something like that. But if you don't really have an established color palette, what we'll do is start with your logo, take some colors from there, and then add some complementary colors. The typography section, you'll see likely a headline example, perhaps a subheadline example, and then a body copy example right there. And that's an example of what a paragraph would look like on your site. Of course, icons and elements you can see here on the right. They can be used in lots of different ways. And of course, we'll use, our creativity and our best judgment to do just that. And then for the button styles, I'll just explain that a little bit. So you've got default, hover, and inactive. And then you've got primary and secondary. So there's a primary button. That button is used for usually the most important actions that you want your customers to take. And then the secondary button is sometimes used if there is another action that a user can take, but it's less important than the other. So you've got default, that's what the button looks like on the page, as you can see on the right. It just normally looks like that. Hover is when a user would put their cursor over it, it would change to this, the hover state, in this case to a navy. And then inactive would be if you have an area on your site that has a button, but for some reason the user can't take that action right now. So, for example, you're filling out a form and the user didn't fill out all of the information that's needed in the form yet. So the button looks inactive because they can't submit the form until they've written in all of the content that they need to write in. Another example of when an inactive button might be on a site is if you have an e-commerce site, there's a product that's sold out. So you can't allow a user to buy a sold out product, of course. So the button might be like this. It might be inactive, showing them that they can't take that action right now. And then, of course, image style. If you provide us images, we'll use some of those here. Otherwise, these might be a couple of examples of stock images that we think will be a good fit for your site. But again, I just wanted to walk through this a little bit. You can see some of the icon styles here, how the photo style plays in, and the different color palette, how that all works together to create a design. But yeah, when you review your web style guide, think about how the elements in the style guide might be used in the design. But again, most importantly, I would consider the color palette for sure as like perhaps the number one thing to consider. And then the rest kind of just complements that.